welcome back to another episode of Comrades, a weekly podcast devoted to the FX series The Americans. My name is Scott Malkus. I'm the supposed TV editor of PopToast.com.
Supposed?
Well, you know, if I wrote for the site on a regular basis, I would call myself maybe I'm the, I don't like getting into that.
You're the pseudo-editor?
Makes me feel bad. I'm pretty much the only one who writes mostly about television. It's mostly a music site. I mean, come on. I have to admit it. I try to make it about TV, but it's a long... See, here's the thing, Jeff.
Hold on, let me sit down for this.
Yes, get a pillow behind your back, get all comfy. When you write about TV, you need to have like 8 hours of your day to be devoted to watching TV. And when you're doing multiple things like raising a family, working a regular job, doing writing, which you love doing, which is like, in my case, scripts and short stories and whatnot, and you're podcasting, watching all that TV is tough. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, I can fill my DVR full of stuff, but I can't get to it in time. And then
clearly you're sleeping too much.
And then the problem is what I found out, like God, this is stupid. Okay, so then I wrote this column called The 3 Strike Rule, which was based on a friend's theory that you should know how well a show's going to do within 3 episodes, 3 strikes, because the pilot is always going to be kick-ass. Because if you have, you know, as you and I both know, you could have a year, 2 years, 10 years, who knows? Matthew Weiner had how many years to write the Mad Men pilot? You have all this time to take that script, write it, rewrite it, tweak it, go back. Oh, I like this part. So you have all that time to do the pilot. So the pilot should be freaking awesome. So then you come to the second one. You're like, oh my God, I got to write a TV show now? Oh, what am I going to do? Ah! And you scramble, you know, and suddenly you're throwing people in a room and trying to figure it out. Second episode may be great, but it also may be kind of weak because you're trying to carry on the greatness of the pilot. So you get to the third episode, and the third episode should be you figured it out. And after 3 episodes, you should know whether the show's going to be great. Now, that theory doesn't always apply.
True.
But the problem with today's TV viewership is you don't have time to wait 3 episodes. I can't wait 3 weeks to write about a TV show because everybody's made a decision by the end of the first episode. Twitter, Facebook, everything is, everybody reads the reviews. There's 1,000 reviews that come out that say this show's going to be the best, everybody should watch it. If a show doesn't do great after like 2 episodes, the networks could pull it. And we've seen that. I mean, that's what's great about basic cable and the other network. They pay for those 13 episodes. They're going to air those 13 episodes if they bomb, if they tank.
So AMC just did something this week.
Yeah, that what's her name? Chloe Sevigny?
Yeah, so
they shelved. Well, they only aired 2 episodes of her show,
Those Who Kill, and then
it wasn't doing well, and they decided to reboot it, or not reboot it, to relaunch it, which to me it was surprising. I don't think I've ever seen that in.
I haven't either. I saw that. I actually read the script for Those Who Kill, and I was really underwhelmed by it. They didn't do anything that. There were some parts in the script where they thought you could tell that they were like, "Oh, this is going to be a little edgy," and this is going to be no, it's not. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm actually not surprised that it didn't do well. But by the same token, like you said, for them to like, okay, you know what, we're going to reboot it, or we're going to relaunch it. You know, give it a different time slot. That shows a lot of the execs have a lot of faith in that project.
I think so, because yes, they could have just let it run and disappear. And the shows don't perform like Rubicon is a good example. A show that really underperformed, did not do well in the ratings. AMC, obviously they kept it on because they filled that time slot, and Low Winter Sun is another example. They put it on, it had okay ratings to start off, and they hope that somebody's going to find it. They hope people will write about it and they'll discover the show, and it doesn't. But they still play they've got that 10 o'clock slot that they've dedicated to that show, and they've sold advertising time too for that. So the business thing. So anyway, that's why I say supposed TV editor. That was a tangent. With me as always is the lovely Jeff Marsick.
Lovely, yes.
Author of the comic book Z-Girl and the 4 Tigers and Dead Man's Park.
I'm not sure lovely and my name have ever put in the same sentence before.
Well, I'm sure your wife calls you lovely.
No, she calls me other things, but this is a family show.
Jeff.
Yes, I am Jeff Marsick. If you recognize the dulcet tones of my voice, it's probably because you recognize me from when Scott and I did the s2e3 podcast, or I know, really. Gotta stop hitting the bourbon early in the morning.
Dude, I'm the one who's up early on the West Coast.
And I do the Biters podcast with Kirk Manley, also with Southgate. Good Lord, can I talk this morning? More coffee.
Southgate Media Group. Who produced the show? Who produced our show?
That's right, Rob Southgate. That's the head honcho.
And his wife, right?
Yes. And they just launched a new one this week, I believe. DC Watchtower.
Which is
Lilith. I'm not sure if it's her real name or not, but
Fair.
Lilith Hellfire or Lilith Fairy, one of the two, because Lilith Hellfire Fairy. No, that's her.
Lilith Fair is that festival at Sarah McCluck.
Yeah, it's not Lilith Fair. Yeah, so she's doing a podcast about all things DC Comics.
Dude, DC is like, TV related. DC is like trying to do with TV what Marvel has basically done with the motion pictures.
Yeah,
they've got Arrow. They're gonna have the Flash. They'll have Gotham on Fox, which is ordered to series, and Constantine on NBC, which I'm sure will go to series because.
Yeah, they got pictures of the actor dressed up like Constantine. Those are on the web, and they've been casting iZombie as well, which is a DC Comics.
Nice.
So check those out over at Southgate. But we're
not here to talk
about
the Americans. Love the American style. Remember Love American Style? Okay.
Oh my gosh, yes. Wow.
Which is an anthology series. Okay, we have to get going.
We are talking about Season 2, Episode 3, The Walk-In. Which sounds like it might be about a clinic, but it's not.
Or Christopher Walken, but it's not.
Ba-dum-bum.
This episode was this week on The Americans. Elizabeth is distracted during her latest mission. Paige goes on a road trip, and Stan gets a medal.
All right.
Good old Stan.
Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Episode was written by Stuart Zickerman. I'm going to go with the hard CH, just like you would in Malchus. And directed by Constantine Marcus. Sorry, I forgot the E when I was writing this down. Two newcomers to the Americans, as far as I can tell. Now, Jeff, this week I thought we'd shake things up a little bit. Podcast. I thought we'd because this week's episode was a really defined ABC type of story episode where there was the A story I felt was Philip and Elizabeth's story.
Yep. B
story was Paige, and the C story was Stan. And I don't mean to break it down like so methodically because this is a show that I don't think is
formulaic.
Yeah, it's definitely not formulaic because things blend together and stuff. But this just gives us an opportunity to shake it up in the Americans a little bit, Jeff, so that we don't get stagnant. Even though
I like that.
4 episodes in. So let's talk about the A story, which is Philip and Elizabeth.
Okay.
Now, as I mentioned in my little quick synopsis, Elizabeth is distracted throughout this entire episode. And as we see through a series of flashbacks in this episode, which is kind of cool. That's nice. I like when they do the flashback thing. Elizabeth and Leanne, who was one of the KGB agents that was murdered in the premiere of this season, have known each other since the 60s. And the episode actually opens with Elizabeth and Leanne on a mission in Maryland. And they're talking about, it seems like Leanne just had their first baby, who is Jared, correct? Yep. And I just had this thought. Jared is the only baby that is mentioned in this episode. And we see we're talked about as a baby. And then later in the episode, Elizabeth is seen with Paige.
Right. And
Paige has a significant, both those characters also have significant parts of the story as well.
It was a nice bookend to the show.
It was, and it's interesting. I just realized that how smart the writing was in this. That this show, which like I just said now, I can break it down to ABC, had a theme about the firstborns, and that was really kind of a cool. Yeah. So, kudos to the writers. You discover something even as you're talking about it out loud. So as we see in the flashback, Leanne says, "I've got a favor to ask you." And before that favor is presented, excuse me. They go and they have a mission. As we later find out, they must have killed a guy or beat him up because their hands are all bloodied. And
which I want to say, I thought was so in the first time we see them, they're sitting on a park bench, and it seems like it's 2 KGB agents just having a day out, two women just chatting on a bench and
talking about the Beatles.
talking about the Beatles, how Revolver was it's the best. And I love how she says that. She's like, "Oh, the Beatles, the Revolver album is the best." And there's just kind of like this grim look on Elizabeth's face, like, Western culture is, crap.
Yeah, Elizabeth's hardcore.
But then, so they're having this conversation. And you just think it's just going to be a conversation, and then it gets interrupted with Elizabeth pointing out, "Hey, there he is. There's our guy."
Yeah.
And it's a guy gets out of a car, and you don't see anything.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen. You know it's a mission, clearly. But then later on, in like you said, they get together again. It's not. We don't see what happened. We don't know what happened. We don't care what happened. We just see she's got blood on her hands, and they're washing it off. Oh, and girl talk continues as your own. I love that. I love that it was show don't tell. You just showed us what we needed to see, and we'll fill in the blanks. It's
smart. It's smart writing. It's I know anybody who's read screenwriting books or taken a course will know that you can put dialogue into a situation and tell as much about the characters by just showing subtle things like that. If they're at their job or if they're at home and all this stuff that's going on, you have the conversation that you want to have that's going on, but they're also doing something else that continues the story of who these characters are and everything. So in that situation, the main point of that thing was what Leanne's going to ask Elizabeth, but you're also showing that they're these agents, and they beat the crap out of people, so or kill them. So crazy. All right, so that sets up the thing that event in that first flashback sets up basically a distraction that stays with Elizabeth throughout the entire episode, and it's just something that weighs heavy on her throughout the entire episode. And so then we cut to our friends, and that would be Philip and Elizabeth, and they are told that they have to go on a mission, and continuing the way that Elizabeth has been acting throughout the entire few episodes, she's like, I don't want to leave the kids. I don't want to go anywhere, right? She's like, she is very concerned. And there's a lot of cool quotes in this one, but she's a little worried about the kids. And Philip says, the center's going to put someone on the kids. They're going to have someone watch the kids, which is something that in my head was like, when Paige goes on a little road trip later on, I'm like, were they watching Paige? What's going on? They must have been because of what happens. But she says to Philip, which is a cool quote, she's like, is that supposed to make us feel better? And Philip says, I think so. Yeah. And then what I loved about it is that the teaser thing ends when she goes, do you feel better? And they just stare at each other. It's just the subtleties of the show. It's like he doesn't have to say, no, he doesn't feel better. It's like, let's let the actors speak it with their eyes. Let's let them do it with their expressions. Let's not spell it out 100% in the writing. It's a participation thing, which is what I love about this show. It's we know people are watching a show. Let's let them feel like they're part of it, and by that I mean let's make it a well thought out and well written thing. So it's not so you can't look away. So you can't be washing the dishes while you're watching the show. You have to watch the show because there are going to be things that happen that are just done visually that allow the actors to be actors. That make the show, that's what I mean by it's a participation thing. You, as an audience member, you get to experience what they're experiencing.
Well, and there's been so much, especially with the kids, and that's one of the things.
I must apologize for the page flipping right now.
Scott clearly has copious notes. But one of the things that's great about this show is all the acting performances, and I really find that it's rare in shows to have the actors, especially the kids, just be so natural and they're all the dialogue and all the interactions. I noticed it with we're not talking about Stan yet, but I noticed it in the scene with Stan and his wife. And just the way Stan's in the kitchen and the wife comes down and she puts her hand on his back. Hey, you want some coffee? The way she just the way she talked, the way the two interact. There wasn't two actors there doing their lines. This was, I believe that they were actually a couple. I bought into it. So the acting on the show is fantastic.
Yeah, I think the actors in the show really obviously they really rehearse and go to a place and figure out how to be those characters and the best way to be those characters. And that's what makes this show good. Even a show like last week, which I felt was kind of slow, there was still something there that just grabs you. This week's episode I thought was stellar, but anyway, speaking of the kids, we cut to the next thing. The person we see is Henry, and this this is something I can relate to. He's working with a Star Wheel that he bought out of the back of a comic book. Which now, how many of us have bought stuff out of the back of a comic book?
Oh my gosh! Raise your hand if you bought a Foot Locker of Army Men from the from the back of the or the X-ray specs.
The X-ray specs, yes, I bought those.
Or the ubiquitous Charles Atlas commercials, kick sand and
all this stuff. That was cool stuff. So that's what I dug about that. And so Henry says he wants to learn he wants to memorize all the constellations, and so he's got the Star Wheel he can't figure out. Of course, Dad comes in and fixes it right away, and Dad's like, "Yeah, you're cool, Dad." And then we start to see Philip and Elizabeth say, "We got to go on a trip. We're gonna go be late to work." The kids never check the work. I don't know, but we're gonna be late at work tonight. And Paige, she says, "There's Salisbury steak in the freezer."
I love that. Salisbury steak? Are you kidding me? That was all over our high school.
Yes.
Lunch menu and Salisbury steak. Oh,
yes, yeah. It's awesome. And of course, Paige is that typical teenager. I love it. She's pushing. She's seeing how far she can push. She's trying to be an adult, that's what that whole age is, as I can attest to as a father of teenagers. Like, you are trying to be an adult. You're trying to test the boundaries. And so she's talking back to Mom. You know that Salisbury steak is just hamburger in the shape of a steak.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth's like, I have nothing to respond to that. But she does say, well, come here. And it's like, you don't know what, with Elizabeth, you're never sure. Come here. You're like, uh-oh. But then it's like she's got too much lip gloss on. It's like, and I love that she says, "You're so beautiful, you don't need it that much." And it's just like, oh, she is a mother, which is the dichotomy of how she is later when we see her in a flashback later in the episode. And in the first moment of the show, she says, she actually admits to Leanne, having children is something that I don't want to do. It's just something that doesn't interest me. Now, part of me wonders if that is because she was raped. Obviously she was brought up in a really harsh circumstances, and she was given to the state by her family. But part of it, she's been hardened because of the trauma she suffered when she was raped. And I just had a thought. I wonder how many times that happened. To her.
Oh, that she had been raped?
Yeah, because we saw that once in the pilot, but we don't know how many times. That general said.
Right. Was that just a one-off, or was it a regular?
Well, the general's like, "This is what we were told. We can do this, whatever we want."
Right.
And he said, because he says that later, but we only saw that one time. But there's nothing to. We don't. That was when she was training. That's obviously before she was chosen to go on her mission to America. So.
Well, Elizabeth in this episode too. It's interesting about how the flashbacks really show contrast to how she is now. So the flashbacks, Leanne talks about having a kid, and you can just tell that that's not flying with Elizabeth.
Right.
And then we did that one flashback in '67 where she just looks at Philip. She has to go do something, I guess, and she has to go.
Well, she's giving out information because Westmoreland is going to order more troops.
Yeah, he wants more troops into Vietnam.
Yeah.
And she walks over to Philip. She goes, "Okay, I'm ready." And he's kind of like, "Ready for what?" And then she starts undoing her shirt, and it's just she's so robotic and very. Yeah,
it's all mission. It's all
exactly. It's all duty.
It's all duty, and that's what's interesting about those flashbacks. Is everything she was back then was about duty. Everything she obviously she's friends with Leanne. She's had a friendship with Leanne that she feels when Leanne takes her in her trust and says, "I want you to do this thing for me," and Elizabeth's like, "Of course, I'll do it, no problem," but. Everything is duty. It's all duty to her. She's not her arrangement with Philip is strictly, two employees.
Yeah.
And not anything else. So, and which is she's changed. She's definitely not that person anymore. Which we see throughout this whole episode. This episode is really about her. Philip is kind of just there with her. Which is what I like about good ensemble shows. Like, he doesn't have to be the focus of every. He doesn't have to have a focal point. He can be, a strong supporting character like he is in this episode. He's supporting Elizabeth. He has an important part with Paige, but he's not the focal of this episode, which is what I really like.
Right.
As we find out when they go to their mission is to go to the mill where these propellers are made. Huge propellers, dude. Huge
yeah,
propellers.
So these are clearly going to be, as I had said, talked about last week. Clearly, at least in my mind, these are the propellers for our submarines. So
Right.
these are going to be the quieter propulsion system for our submarines that someone like Walker gave secrets away. I'm actually going to look up what they'd gone to. I'm a geek about specs and cool stuff like this. So I actually want to look up what a 9-axis CNC cylindrical grinder is because I'm curious. But yeah, so they show up at this warehouse in.
Now, did you notice it says Newport News?
Yes.
So was that a cover? Was it like a news plant that there was as a cover?
No. Newport News is the military base down there in Newport News is down in
it's
Virginia.
city. Sorry, I thought it was a newspaper.
No.
Right. I didn't look that up. Although that would have been cool if they were using a newspaper plant as a cover for these top secret.
Yeah, it's a well-known military base down there.
Thank you for that pointing that out to me, Jeff.
My pleasure. So they show up at this warehouse and they've got these, ridiculous disguises again. And but let's back up a second. What I liked about leading up to this, they stop somewhere to get a tab.
They get a tab, and she finds those IDs, and she's mad. She is angry.
Because someone had made IDs for them, but
So
they're
quickly.
perfect.
Yes.
I mean they're brand new, and she's like, I can't remember what she said, but it was basically
I hate when they rush them.
Yeah. So she's sitting there trying to scuff it up on the windowsill of the car, which was again attention to detail. Someone's not just going to go and just little things like that. Joel Weisberg and lend such authenticity to this stuff.
Yeah, and there's some interesting stuff said in this scene as well. Again, another example of the two of them on their job, and the job is continuing their story, but the dialogue that they're having is what this whole episode is about. And so she says, what are we going to do what happens with, they don't come right out and say it, but they're talking about Leon's son, Jared. I mean, let's not be coy about it. They're talking about Jared throughout the whole episode, but they don't come right out and say it, but they, which another thing that I like what they do in this is they don't spell it out for you. Like a natural conversation between these two would be, they wouldn't say his name every time because you don't say the kid's name every time when you're talking. You're just talking about the boy. They know they're talking about the boy. We're catching him in the middle of some conversation that's been going on for weeks. So Elizabeth says, well, what would we do if something happened to us, who would take in the kids? Because that's the story, because we learned that Jared has been taken in by this family in the neighborhood who love him. I mean, they love him because he's such a good kid. Phillips jokes and says, Stan and his family would take him. She's like, seriously? The Beemans. She's like, seriously? He's like, and he says, well, we don't have any friends. And she's like, she says, we don't have any friends. He's like, well, that's the way you wanted it. Yeah. And they're bickering. She's like, what's that supposed to mean? It's like, he's just forget it. It's like one of those married couple arguments. Yeah. That happens, like, where something that's always eating away at him kind of comes out in the heat of like this passionate discussion. Which maybe they'll change. Maybe something like that will change. Who knows? Maybe that will be something that Elizabeth will strive for throughout the whole season. I don't know, to find someone she can call a really close friend. Not necessarily that she can reveal our secrets to, but someone who will be able to take the kids if something terrible happens, so that they don't wind up in the hands of the company. Right. Because that obviously is a fear that they have, as we saw in that first scene where she says, does that make you feel better? Do you feel they obviously, and this is something that harkens back to last episode where they say he's going to be taken care of, the boy's going to be taken care of. Well, what does that mean? And they both have that fear. They don't want their kids to wind up, in the hands of the Soviets. Right. They want their kids to continue, which to me is interesting because obviously in the first season she was like, our kids are going to learn the truth. They're going to be, raised and believe in everything that the motherland tells us. And now I think she's realizing how much better America would be for her kids and how detrimental it would be for her kids to be pulled out of where they are in their lives to be shipped back to Russia. Ugh.
Yeah, she's getting conflicted.
She is getting conflicted, and that is an interesting thing because it'll come up in the last song they used in this episode. Yeah. Okay, so yes, I'm sorry. We were tabbed, but then they go to the mill. I mean, they go to the mill. It's a very straightforward episode in terms of the events that happen. It's all in the nuance in this thing. So they go to the mill and they're disguised and they're saying we're with the moving company and
they're looking for this. They're looking for this device. There's this grinder.
Grinder, yes.
I love this scene. This scene was fantastic. This is my favorite scene of the whole episode. So she's breaking into a crate and she's looking for this thing, and Derek, just
this guy named Derek. Just what I liked about that. I'm sorry, I interrupt you, but that guy played him as just a straightforward, honest, decent human, blue collar guy.
Absolutely. Some guy who's so he just shows up. He's like, hey, can I help you? She's like, yeah, I'm looking for this grinder. I'm with the moving company. He's like, oh, we shipped that to Annapolis yesterday. Yeah. And now, again, going on Show Don't Tell. There's a guy who sees this woman. Clearly something's like weird, but the guy's low man on the totem pole, so he doesn't quite know. And she doesn't threaten him overtly. All she does is pick up a heavy crowbar and carry it in her hand.
And it's oh, sorry.
Just keep interrupting me.
I'm sorry. This episode but I love that guy is twice her size.
Yeah. Exactly. And she's just sitting there and he's like, well, I don't know. And she says, well, do you have another one? Is there a duplicate that I can look at? And he's like, well, I don't, you know what? Let's go get my manager because he might know. And then she gets down and she's standing there just kind of, resting her arm casually on a piece of machinery and hip thrust out and just kind of, gripping that crowbar, which, the intimation of malice there. It's just like, oh, we don't need to get your manager involved in this. And he just, his eyes keep shifting down to the crowbar back to her. And you can just tell he's like, I so don't want to be here right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's just the way Kara Russell plays that. He is scared. I mean, like I said, that guy's twice her size. He could run, but she could attack him. He could take a couple hits. He's still bigger than her. He could probably sit on her.
But again, the guy knows what the score is because when she says, well, do you work on the machinery? Well, yeah, I can show you the propeller. Okay, yeah, where is that? Oh, that's over here on the docks. All right. And as he turns to walk, she's behind him with the crowbar. And I love the scene where he stops. He's like, hey, I've got, he's not begging for his life or anything. It's just like, it's almost like a casual conversation. Yeah, my kids are going to be expecting me home for dinner. My kids. And he pulls his wallet out. He's like, this is, Joe and this is Edward or whatever.
Well, he does that thing that they tell you to do when you're like when somebody's in a situation, you have to humanize yourself.
Exactly.
And that's what he does. He's not just the work guy. He's like, look, I have 3 boys. And he, I don't know if he can tell, but obviously as an audience member, we can tell that hits her. Hits hard.
It does. But she doesn't show, facial, she still stays rigid. You could tell that she's regarding it. And what I love about that scene is, she doesn't break down. He doesn't break down. There's no, mushy stuff. It's just, and then he just says, they're going to be expecting me home for dinner at like 6. And it's quiet for a second. There's a beat. And then she says, well, I don't see any reason why you can't, why you won't be there. Right.
Yeah.
And then we go into and then when we go to commercial and we come back, now they're in the place with the big propeller.
Right.
And Philip shows up and she's like, let's go over here. She takes Derek behind, out of sight. Philip takes the plans that are, taped to the specs that are taped to the propeller, and then he makes pictures of them all. And when they're standing there, I mean, Derek just knows, dude, you can't clearly he knows they can't let him live. Right?
Right.
He knows stuff, and it's going to go. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, please don't let her just let this guy walk away. You can't just let this guy walk away.
Right.
And what does she do? She says, let me see the picture of your kids again.
Yep.
And he pulls out his wallet, and she looks through, and she pulls one of the pictures out, and she goes, this is Edward, right? He says, yeah. Or David.
Danny.
And, Danny, sorry. I'll get it right. And she just looks
go through the whole Bible.
And she just doesn't say anything. Just looks at it. Just puts it in her pocket, hands his wallet back, and walks away.
Yeah.
I loved it. Simple. It was everything, like, we've talked about. Everything is said in what isn't said. And, man, if more people wrote TV like that, wrote movies like that, we'd have so much better storytelling.
Well, and it's what I like about that is it's all, it's all Kara Russell. It's all about those two in that scene. Like I said, Matthew Rhys. I apologize to him again. He is totally not a part of his. This is, like I said, he's just a supporting character in this whole sequence of events, and he's just in the background. It's all about Kerry Russell and the other actor, and
that actor, I really enjoyed him for being, a minor role, just being that guy was awesome. I mean, he was fantastic. There was. Again, kudos to casting on this show. I'm going to look him up. Keep talking because I'm going to look him up. I want to give him a shout out.
Please do, because we should have had that information before we started.
Should have.
We are. I have information about other stupid stuff, but not about...
Exactly. What kind of newbies are we? They feel like,
I apologize to our listeners.
I fully blame Scott for this.
I'm going to take this moment to apologize for my ineptitude not having that information before we went on the air. Before we started, I say like we're on the air, but we're just... I know. We're on the air.
Like Mike and Mike or something.
Which is another Peter Gabriel song. Peter Gabriel all over this episode as we come up. Okay, so...
Here I got. Hold on.
What's his name?
Dave T. Koenig.
What else has he done? Koenig?
Yep, he was born in 1973.
Is it Koenig?
You know what? Well,
he had a coach named Koenig. How do you spell it?
Koenig.
We had Koenigs in our high school.
So it appears, looking at his IMDb here, he has one writer credit.
Nice.
What did he write? I'm the Radio Man, a short, but looks like he just does guest appearances all around. Bunch of shorts. That's
what they would characterize as a character actor in television.
The Onion News Network, Blue Bloods, he had one. Damages, he had an appearance. Deception, and The Americans. So
he's great. He was great. I mean, he
loved
really...
you, Dave. Dave, I thought you killed it. So.
Shout out to Dave. Dave, you were awesome, Dave. We loved you, Dave. Okay, moving on. After they steal the plans and Phillips photographs everything, they split up. The two of them split up. Philip goes home, and Elizabeth goes to complete what she's been alluding to the entire episode, which we find out is that she's going to see Derek. Jared. Sorry, not Derek. Derek was the guy she took the picture of. And what we find out in one of the final flashbacks is that Leanne has a letter that she and Emmett have written for their oldest son, and they want that letter is going to tell. Basically, it's supposed to tell them everything their cause, that they're KGB agents, that they are spies, etc., etc. Explain everything and tell him how wrong America is and the way the world is right, and hopefully you will follow our cause. And so then Elizabeth disguises herself as someone from Children's Services. Well, first she goes to the house, which is she goes to Emmett and Leanne's house to find this letter. She knows where to find it, and that was kind of creepy because I don't know if you've ever gone to like someone's house after they died. It's always kind of like you can feel their spirits in it, and I thought they kind of captured that, and that was kind of creepy, and then she gets the letter and she goes to the house of this family that has taken in Jared. They're this kind American family. They're taking in the boy. They've taken him strictly because...
he used to babysit for them, or he's babysitting.
He used to babysit him. He was so great. We adore him that we overpay him to continue to babysit. Up to $8 an hour.
$8 an hour.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, man, that was big bucks.
So Elizabeth disguised herself as a child from the child advocacy. Can you say that word?
Yes. Child advocacy
center. Thank you. And she's there to meet with Jared. And she has a conversation with the mother of this house who's taking him in. We see him sitting in the backyard, isolated from the rest of these younger kids who are playing. He's stressed. He's devastated. His family's dead. He doesn't know anything about what happened. Okay, so we just see Jared sitting. He's a little isolated from the other kids. Obviously, he's devastated, post-traumatic stress syndrome. I mean, who can even describe what he must be going through? Right. And later on, as this episode this storyline reaches its conclusion, Elizabeth is sitting with him in the living room, and they're talking about parents and what she learns. She learns a lot about herself because Jared basically has survivor's guilt. He says, "I've had this ear infection," which, by the way, that was mentioned in the first episode of the season. They talked about going swimming and him having an ear infection. I believe that
really?
was. I think that was an off-the-cuff remark that happened. I know it was. Maybe if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I swear to God, because that popped in my head. It's like, wow, that was brought up, and because he says they're going to go back to the hotel and say, hey, can we go swimming? But he says he's had this ear infection, and he says if I hadn't gone swimming, I could say my something's going on in the background at Jeff's house.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Indicating we might have to wrap this up really quick. So I'll talk faster. So the next thing that happens is she doesn't give him the letter. This is great. She comforts him in this. It seems like this is the first time that he's opened up about everything that has happened, and he's bawling his eyes out. He's devastated. He says, "If I just didn't go to the pool, I would have been there to save them, to fight for them." And Elizabeth's like, obviously she knows, no, that wouldn't have happened. You'd be dead too. But she comforts him in this moment, and it's just, she doesn't give him this letter that was written. That's what we find out.
And we knew she wasn't.
I didn't know for sure.
Okay.
I can't say that I knew that for sure. I wondered if she. What I was thinking. I was thinking, how is she going to give him that letter? I kept thinking, how is she going to give this kid this letter? What is she going to do? Just give it to him and leave? But she doesn't, and that to me is like a turn in her character. It's a turning point in her character, obviously, which is great because season 1 she was one way, and you saw her discovering that she might actually love this man that she's lived with as a stranger for the longest time. Now she's realizing it's not just the love for him, it's the love for the family. And her character's changing, and I love that. I love that it didn't happen overnight. It's a gradual thing that's happening. Her eyes are opening, and it's great. It's fantastic. And
again, kudos to the actor who played Jared. I'm gonna pull his name up here real quick. His name is Owen Campbell, because he played it. He played that scene really well. Where she says, "Well, you don't have to go to school. We wouldn't blame you if you didn't go to school." And he's like, "No, I have to because they would want me to."
Right.
And I thought that was great.
Great. Okay, that was storyline 1. This is kind of screwy, but now we got Paige.
And I'm just going to finish up that storyline, and at the end, she goes, I like that she didn't read, maybe she read the letter, but she doesn't read it on screen at all. So as far as we know, she doesn't read the letter, which I kind of liked. She
burns it.
Right, but then she folds it up and she makes like a candle out of it. She has a little moment of grieving, which I thought was a nice little touch.
Montage, the last montage was fantastic. They did a good job. So then we have Paige. Paige has her own storyline, and Paige's storyline is basically she's learning how to become a good liar.
Yes.
She is becoming a good liar, and she lies to Henry and says, I have to stay late after school, so tell Mom and Dad that I brought you home, okay? And Henry's like, sure. Then Henry goes to school, and then what does Paige do? She hops on a bus and goes to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, right?
Right.
Yeah, she's going to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to see her Aunt Helen. Now, the two important things with Paige, two things in this episode, which number 1, she meets a girl on that bus whose name is Kelly, which they don't. Another thing I like is they don't come right out and say, hi, my name is Kelly.
Right.
In fact, when she gets off the bus, we still don't know that girl's name, and we don't know that girl's name until she calls her at the end. So it's like, that's natural writing. That's natural dialogue. Yes, she must have introduced herself at some point, but we didn't see it. And they said, well, when would she introduce herself? Well, we've already cut the scene, so we'll just figure it out later. I like that. I don't like I don't want her to have to say, hi, my name is Kelly, and they shake hands, because that's what kids do. They just start talking, and then eventually, some point, they say, but we aren't there for that moment. And I like that, because when we come back, because it starts off, they have this little conversation on the bus. We come back to them, and they're already like best buds. And it's like, so we missed that moment where that introduction happened, but that's fine, because the importance of this scene is that she's bonded with someone else who understands what it's like to have parents who something's not right with them. And this is where Paige kind of starts talking about her suspicions of her parents. She thinks that maybe she thinks that maybe someone was having an affair, or she doesn't know. She says it always feels like something's going on, and she wants to know what it is. And that's that's a part of being a teenager, becoming an adult. You want to know everything your parents are talking about. Your parents are having a conversation that's kind of coded. I'm sure you've seen this with your kids, where you'll have a conversation in front of them, and now they're starting to be aware, and like, oh, what are you talking about? And you may be talking about finances, you may be talking about something terrible that happened in the neighborhood, and you think that this conversation is, they are paying attention, but they are, and they're registering it, and they want to be a part of that world. They want to be a part of the grown-up world, and that's what's happening with Paige, and it's great. So then she goes to her aunt's house. Now this was great, because on top of the fact that we don't know what's going to happen when she goes in this house, I like that at the same time that this is happening, there's just some great parallel editing going on, in which while she's going into the house, it's stuff that's going on with Elizabeth at that mill, where she's, you're not sure. They built the suspense up for 2 different storylines, and it's happening at the same time, and that feeling was happening at the same time. It was great. I loved it. Technically, a wonderful job. And so what happens is she goes to the house. She's looking around. We're like, oh man, this is either going to happen. This something's going to happen terrible.
Right.
You know, it's going to be
Nothing good can come from this.
There's going to be a stranger's house. I mean, I don't know why I was thinking this because obviously, you know, the Soviets have everything thought out, and of course they do because some old woman comes walking down. She's like, oh, you're here. It's so good to see you. And this old woman is confused and tells Paige she thinks it's Shelley. Her long-lost daughter, Shelley, has come back home to live. And Paige is like, I'm not Shelley. I'm Paige, Elizabeth's daughter. And it's like, and you still think, oh, there's something screwy is going to happen. But then there's a pan over to the picture on the wall, and it's a picture of Elizabeth with Paige. And it's awesome. It's all about parents in this episode. It's so cool. And that's all we see. That's all we see of this. We don't know anything that happened during this whole... Which is interesting.
I watched that scene a couple times, and I didn't quite get it at first, because at first when she came down, she's like, "Oh, Shelley, you're here." I was like, "Oh, even the kids have code names." You know, I thought it was that thing, and then she was like, "I'm not Shelley, I'm Paige," and then I was like, "Oh, wait,
I don't
Helen
understand.
has Alzheimer's. What's going on here?"
Yeah, great scene. And what's cool about that is what happened after that moment. That has me wondering. I want to know what happened.
Right.
Because Paige didn't just go and like, I got to go. She obviously, something must have happened sitting on the, I don't know. Interesting. So that happens. And then Paige comes home. Now, then we cut to later in the day. After Phil is split off from Elizabeth, he comes home. And there's a nice, cool little scene with Henry where Henry is lying to his dad, saying, oh, Paige is staying for the debate club or something. And, but Henry knows that. I don't think Henry knows that's true. Henry's lying, and of course Philip can read a liar a mile away, so he knows that Henry's lying. It's like, oh, really? It's the debate club, really? You know? And then the phone rings, and who's on the phone, Jeff? Who's calling?
It's Aunt Helen.
Aunt Helen sitting there with a glass of scotch.
Yeah.
She totally has her wits about her.
Yeah.
She knows what's going on, and she's like, "Hi." What did she say? I can't remember. Hi, son, or something. Or Sasha. She says hi, Sasha. That's what. That's what she says. Well, I thought she said hi, son, but now I know she says hi, Sasha, because that's his name, and he obviously knows. Oh, who knows my full name? It's like it's your Aunt Helen, and I just want to tell you that Paige came by to see me today. It's like, oh yeah, it's on. It's great. And later, so Paige comes home, and the direction of this sequence when Paige comes home is so awesome because we've all been there where you're lying to your parents. You're lying to your parents, and you are across the room. You do not want to be next to them when you are lying to them because you want to be as far away from them because you are feeling the guilt. You are feeling like, I'm lying. If I could just get this lie over with, like, get up the stairs and get out of this room, I'll be okay. And
she's world class. When the lie that she drops about, she said she had to stay late for debate club, and then what did she say? She said she's taking the point of arguing about test tube babies. Oh, the ethical ramifications of test tube babies. And Philip, he always has such great one-liners, retorts. He's like, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And but she's a world-class liar. I mean, that was
after mommy and daddy.
Oh my God, that was rehearsed and it just falls off her tongue. And
I just love that she knows she's lying. He knows she's lying. It's like they both know. She knows that he knows that she's lying, and that's why there's that huge gap between them because she does not want to be close to him. She is feeling like she's betraying him, you know.
I just want to back up a second. When Henry lies for Paige, first of all, I love the fact that we've got brother and sister who cover for each other so well. But when he lies he does the classic thing that you and I did with our parents, which was you put the lie on, right? You lay the lie, but then you do a misdirection to quickly get them off the stage and go somewhere else. So he lies to he covers for his sister, and he's just like, yeah, she's got to, and then she had to stay late for school, and then debate club, and then she was doing something else. Hey, Dad, you were right. Road and Track says the Z28 is going to be car of the year, but I still think you should get the Corvette. And then the phone rings. Classic.
Yeah, play up to Dad's interests so you can distract him. Oh, it's awesome. Oh, it's just, I was just like, this is so well.
Paige sneaking in the house, I had a flashback because it's kind of traumatic as a kid. Flashback to my sneaking in the house. I would have the car, and I was told that, hey, you got to be home by midnight. So invariably, I was home by 1:30. So I'd come in, and my parents were very sound sleepers. I knew where the stairs leading up to my bedroom. I knew where all the creaks were, so I knew where to walk to keep it quiet. I had 3 dogs. And all of those dogs slept in my parents' bedroom. The doors were always open. We didn't sleep with doors closed. And they never woke up. But I would always come in the house 1:30 in the morning. It's quiet. I got the door closed. Oh man, I'm a ninja. I walk into the family room, come out, from the garage into the family room, and we had a parakeet, a bird cage. It was shrouded. You put the thing over the cage at night. That damn bird every single time sensed my presence, and when she'd be like squawk, and you hear like all this rustling, I'm like, bird, shut up. That was the loudest sentinel in the house. Still didn't wake anybody up, but so that was my flashback. That was my tangent. I had flashbacks to Paige sneaking in the house.
Yes. Well, Paige does not get away with her lie because Philip knows she's lying because of Paul. Totally. So Philip goes into KGB agent Philip mode. I mean, I don't know if Paige has ever seen him this dark. He's not just angry. He is dark, man.
He's season 1 Elizabeth.
Yes, and he sits her down, and he says, of course, the biggest hypocrisy in the whole show is like, lying will not be tolerated.
Right.
Yeah. And Paige is like typical teenager, like she's at fault here. She's screwed up, and she's acting like he's being, unreasonable. It's like, okay, so what? I just got on a bus and went across the country. I just crossed state lines. Why are you mad at me? I can take care of myself. Are we done here?
I just want to find relatives.
Yeah, he says some stuff there, man. I think some of that must be true. It's like, my father died at 6. You should be happy for what you got. He just pulls out all the punches. And I don't think she feels it. I think she's, like I said, she's a teen. She's like, forget it. He's being unreasonable. I didn't do anything wrong. I just want to see our relative.
Right. And she clearly doesn't feel it because when she goes up to her room and she's kind of pacing back and forth, what does she do?
She calls Kelly.
She pulls out Kelly's phone number, calls her, which, again, I don't know. I don't know. When she picks up the phone and starts, dude, you couldn't do that at my house, man. Someone was invariably on the phone.
We didn't have phones in our bedrooms.
That's true, I didn't.
I mean, seriously, I don't. She's for all the things that Paige. Oh, that's the dog just walked by. For all the things that Paige is angry about, she's got it pretty good. She got a phone in her room.
Yeah.
Think about that. We had 3 phones in our house. The kitchen, which everybody used.
Yeah.
That was the central phone. So if you wanted to call a girl and ask her on a date, guess what phone you used? The kitchen. There was my parents had a phone in the bedroom upstairs, which was rarely used, but it was just there for that. If that call came in the middle of the night, there was a phone right by my dad's ear. And then he had one in his office. And then there was a line in the basement that if you really wanted to make a call, you could take it to the basement, but then you're just announcing that you're with siblings. You just announce, I got to go make a call into the basement. They're like, yeah, okay, we're just gonna start pounding on the floor and doing.
Oh yeah. Well, the worst was always like making a phone call and then you hear the click as someone picks up on the other line.
Yeah.
You're in the middle. You're in the middle of really just laying it down and really sweet talking a girl, and it's like, hey, Jeff, can you get off the phone? I need to make a phone call.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Mom. I got to call your Aunt Edna about her hemorrhoids.
And it was never like click. Oh, hey, you're on the phone. Hey, can you get off? It was like click, a little bit of mouth breathing as they're listening in.
Are you on the phone? It was always like you were. It was like, in my house, it was like, because it was their house, it was their phone. It was like, when are you going to be off the phone? I need you to. It's like, I'm not on the phone. Because of that, I rarely called people. I have a fear of using the phone because of my experiences growing up. A phone phobia.
Well, as a kid,
that's why I wrote notes all the time.
Phone calls were 20 minutes, 30 minutes. There were some people who were known for being on the phone for like an hour. Dude, I was on a 5-minute leash.
Yes.
I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, 20 minutes was way too long. And like I said, all of those calls had to be done on the main phone. We had like one of those 25-foot extension things from the receiver to the. Yeah. So, and my mom paced. She still paces, and I do because of this. She would pace, and because she would, for our kitchen. You were in my parents' house when I was a kid. So the kitchen had a led into the dining room, and so you would basically walk around the refrigerator through this little entryway into the dining room, and the cord was so long that you could walk all the way around all that thing, at least get to almost like the end of the dining room table, 25 feet. It was huge. Yeah. And you could then walk back, and my mom would do that. She would walk back and forth. And I remember one time I broke up with a girl. I was terrible. I was a jerk. I broke up with this girl, and I did it in the living room. I didn't even do it privately. I was like, in the living. Oh, I was such a jerk. I'm sorry. I apologize to you if you're listening. You know who you are.
All right, so Paige was lucky she had a phone in her room.
Paige was lucky she had a phone in her room, and then when she
trauma
calls
that we
Kelly,
suffered,
and she sneaks out. Paige sneaks out of the house. Oh, Paige! While Dad's downstairs developing pictures for the KGB.
Yep, in the darkroom. Yep.
Okay, so those are our two main stories, and then we have Stan. And Stan, we get to see Stan in heroic mode. Stan kicking butt. Now, Stan comes home after doing surveillance on Dameron the whole night.
Yep, on Bruce Dameron.
Bruce Dameron, a man barely alive. Okay, and
that guy passed away. You know, the guy who does the voiceovers. Who's
well. Oh yeah, he does. Yeah, what's his name?
Oh man, I don't remember.
Brought it up. Okay. We'll get you that information by the end of the day. So he gets home. He's done surveillance on Dameron all night at his laundromat. And Sandra greets him, and they're cordial with each other. And she's about to leave. And she's going to a Werner Earnhardt course. You know what that is? Did you look that up?
I did look it up. It was like one of those self-help motivational kind of thing. Yes.
I went to one of those.
An EST, Earnhardt seminar training, EST. You went to one of those?
I went to it. He sold it, and I didn't realize I went to it was an Earnhardt one. He sold the corporation, and it was called the Forum by Landis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to one of those in the 90s. Julie and I went. My sister-in-law was involved with it, and it was. I mean, I kind of got something out of it. It was cool, but I also got that kind of Amway vibe. Yeah. Have you ever been to an Amway meeting?
No.
Yeah, I went to one of those in college. I went to one of those in college, and I was so like.
What, were you just shopping for a cult? I should belong to a cult. Let me sample.
I went to the Amway meeting because one of my college roommates was in it, and I was like, I don't want to do this. It's a pyramid scheme. And he's like, no, just come. So I came, and of course they put the hard sell on you. Now, right. Are you going to take the product? And I'm like, I'm not taking the product. I came here as a courtesy to my friend, which you said when I walked in the door. If you're just here for information, we're not going to pressure you. Guess what you're doing? You're pressuring me. I'm leaving. So I went to the forum thing, and it was cool. It was actually had a lot of stuff that was about bettering yourself and empowering yourself. Right. But I had that weird vibe, and of course they wanted you to sign up. It was an introductory thing, and then they want you to sign up for the three-day weekend course. Yep. And I was like, I mean, I was in my 20s. I had no money, and so they called me, and they actually called me after I went because you have to give your phone number and all that stuff. And I don't know what I said to them, but I basically told them not to. I was kind about it. I said, you know what? Your stuff meant, I really got something out of it. I don't have the money. And I'm doing kind of self-exploration right now. So, maybe call me in a year. And to their credit, they never called me again.
Good.
It's kind of like the Marines. When the Marines, no, it wasn't. It was the Army. The Army called me in high school. This is my favorite story. Army calls me in high school because you know how the armed forces they're recruiting. Yep. And they call all the kids about to go into college and they go, Mr. Malkus, we see that you're about to. I vividly remember this conversation. I was up in my parents' bedroom on that phone, and they're like, blah blah blah. What are you going? I'm going to college, and they're trying to say, oh, you can do ROTC, And I was like, what are you going to study? I was like, well, I'm going to study film. He's like, film? Yeah. You mean like directing movies? I'm like, yeah. Well, you have good luck with that, Mr. Malkus. I'm like, wow, you really didn't want me. The Marines called me, and they're like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I'm going to go into filmmaking. And obviously this guy in the Marine recruiting knew that I wasn't going to be a fit, but he was cool about it. It was like, wow, that's really interesting. He had a conversation with me. He's like, so you probably aren't really interested in the armed forces. I'm like, well, it's not really my thing. It's like, that's cool. And then I told the guy, I was like, well, you know what? I just want to say, I'm not going in the Marines, but I appreciate you at least finishing the conversation and finding out who I am as opposed to the guy in the Army who just hung up on me. He's like, well, that tells you a little something about the Army. I was like, wow. Just that little dig. I was like, nice. All right. So Stan and Sandra are having a moment, and like you said earlier, the acting on scene is just wonderful. They have the interaction between that two just seems like a real married couple. Right. And building on that, Stan says the wrong thing, and he doesn't even know he said the wrong thing. When Sandra's leaving, because it's all about betting herself, he says, "Well, you have fun." It's like
because she looks nice, and he compliments her. He says, "Well, you look nice. Where are you going? Oh, we're going to this
to the forum."
Yeah, this Werner Earnhardt thing, and like you said, he says, well, okay, as she's about to leave, he's like, you have fun. And all of a sudden, the dynamic, her tone changed. She's like, fun? This isn't fun. This is work. I'm working on myself.
And Stan's like, that's what I meant. I mean...
Poor Stan. But guy can't catch a break, man.
Well, it's like... he is cheating on her, so let's not
well, that's true.
Too much. But he is sleeping with the Russian spy.
Well, that's true. But still, he can't get a break. And he doesn't get a break because the next scene, again, that's reinforced, is he's with Gad in the office, and they're going through Dameron's. Awesome. Yeah, that was a great scene. So they're going through Dameron's file, and they kind of figure out, well, he was wounded, and then he spent time in Walter Reed, and Gad goes, Walter Reed, and
whenever I hear that, he says, whenever I hear about Walter Reed, it reminds me of Peeling Pain.
Yeah, and then Stan kind of looks at him like, I don't get it. And he's like, well, I was wounded in Khe-Sanh. I spent time, third degree burn. Yeah, 3rd degrees on both legs in Khe-Sanh. And Stan goes, and Stan, you can see, is kind of like, wow, you served. That's cool. And then Stan's like, well, I couldn't because I was in the FBI. Gag goes, well, so was I, but I volunteered anyway. And then there's the twitch on the twitch really happens.
He does.
The twitch happens so many times this episode. It really does deserve it deserves a credit in the an acting credit.
The Noah Emmerich twitch.
It needs its own Twitter account actually. So I thought that was great. He just twitches and he's like, oh crap. So they're following up on Dameron. So they're like, all right, well, Stan goes to where Dameron works at the World Bank, and he's doing this investigation. Goes up to Dameron's office. Man, that thing is spotless. This guy there's nothing there. And he comes down, he talks to Dameron's boss, and he says, it's clean up there. He's like, tell me again, where's this meeting? Because there was going to be
there's a meeting of all the heads of the World Bank are going to meet.
And earlier before this, Stan, when he's with his wife in the kitchen, he's like, yeah, I just spent 4 hours watching a guy, do 4 loads of laundry. What married guy or what single guy does 4 loads of laundry? And her response was, what married guy does 4 loads of laundry? He's like, all right, good point. So he's been outside this laundromat, watching this guy all night, doesn't get it, doesn't understand. Then when he's in the office with the guy's boss, and he's like, where's this meeting at? Oh, this meeting is at the Marquis Hotel. Wait, the Marquis on, what, 3rd Avenue? D Street? And the guy says, yeah, that's the one. All of a sudden, Stan leaps into action. Call 911, tell the police to go to that location.
The only thing missing from this sequence was great 70s, 80s music. Yeah. Stan running down the street. Sorry.
So Stan gets down the street, and he passes the Marquis Hotel. He looks behind him, sees Marquis Hotel, then looks across the street. What's across the street?
Laundromat.
The laundromat.
Yep.
And what I liked about this sequence, and then Stan goes up, he does a little bit of looking around, goes out the back of the laundromat, goes upstairs, finds there's Dameron on the roof with a sniper rifle.
Yep.
What I liked about this was how Stan, throughout this episode so far, he's kind of, he's kind of the sad sack, right?
Yeah.
He kind of, strikes out with his wife. Strikes out again with Gad. And, but yet he can, and we know his past when he was working gangs and when he was undercover, he was, it's alluded to, he was successful. But I like the fact that, hey, he snares this guy. He put 2 and 2 together, gets the guy before the guy can kill anybody in the World Bank, and, he shoots the guy. And then they offer to give him, a medal for what he's done. And I like that. I like that he wasn't a complete goofball.
I wonder the significance of what Dameron said too, because Dameron was shouting out some stuff. What I liked is he's like, the World Bank, those guys, the men who have all the money are, they own everything, and you know what they're doing to you and me, and that's obviously something that resonates today.
Yep.
So it was interesting. And Ronald Reagan doesn't care, which is that obviously the creators of the show chose this era because of Ronald Reagan and what he stands for and everything. So interesting stuff there. So Stan does get his reward. His reward necessarily isn't the medal that he tells Nina that he's going to get. The reward is Nina.
Right. And he says those magic 3 words.
I love you, Nina.
So
he says, I love you.
Yeah, he drops the L word on her, and that's what she was kind of hoping, because that makes that helps her mission.
Yes. Now this is an interesting thing, because they cut from Stan and they go to Nina, and they just do this few quick scenes of Nina, and she's typing that report. Now, this is the thing: Nina's typing a report, telling it, like we saw last week. She's detailing everything that happens, and while she's typing the report, she says, "Whoa, you know what? Oh, I just realized she doesn't type in the report that he says that he loves her. No, she's remembering that." And so, I couldn't tell with that smile. That smile, was that victory smile, and what kind of victory? Does she love him, or is she like, I'm getting it back? I can't figure out.
I had the same question too. She doesn't put it in the report because when Arcady is reading the report, she tells him, "Hey, he also says he loves me," and
he says, "You may be digging yourself out of that hole you got yourself into."
Right.
Yeah,
I thought the same thing. She's running it through her head, and she's got that little smirk on her face, like. I didn't take it as I got this guy. I got him, holding up her little pinky finger going, I got him. I took it that...
She has feelings for him. I seriously feel like she does have feelings for him, even though she wants to take him down.
I do too.
And one of the other significant thing that happens with Nina is that Oleg comes in and tries to get her to go to a hockey game. It seems that they're going to push that storyline. I don't know what's up with Oleg. I don't know if I trust him 100%. There's something about that guy.
At all. Yeah, he's.
But it's because he's KGB. I don't trust any of those KGB people, except for Philip and Elizabeth, because they're our heroes. It's such a cool show because I trust Stan. Stan is technically I don't know. Stan isn't really. I don't think that the antagonists in the show are Philip and Elizabeth. I feel like the antagonists in the show are going to be the KGB ultimately.
I do too, and we talked about that a couple weeks ago, where I think that there's going to be a testing of faith with Philip and Elizabeth because their own people are going to they're going to let them down. They're going to let them down. They're going to hang them out to dry, when it best suits them. I
wonder if that's what how I just said that what Dameron said that has any significance. I wonder if that's part of the storyline for Stan. I wonder if that's going to come into play about him turning, because we said before. We think that they're going to try and turn him. That's their goal. Their goal is to turn him. He loves Nina, and here's this guy spewing stuff like, the World Bank doesn't care about you. Do you know what they're doing to you?
Right.
That information, what if that sinks in? What if that gets into his head? What if that I don't know. That's just a thought I had. I just had a thought now.
Which is rare. Scott doesn't usually have thoughts.
I don't have many thoughts. I'm sorry. Okay. I just want to point out one thing before we go into the final montage. I really love the hair and makeup in this episode. I know it's a technical thing. Sorry, folks. I'm going all technical on you. But the flashbacks really captured a different era. And more importantly, they made Kerry Russell and Matthew Rice. Sorry. God, somebody please write me and tell me how you say his name. I'm going to have to look up an interview. So bad. I should know this already. But it made them look younger. They really looked like they were 10 years.
Yeah.
And I believed it. And if obviously these actors are in their late 30s and 40s, but I believed it. I believe that they were in their 20s and their 60s. So the episode ends with a montage, which is with one of my favorite Peter Gabriel songs called Here Comes the Flood. And the version that most people know is an acoustic version of the song that he re-recorded in the late 80s for his greatest hits album, 16 Golden Grades, which strangely enough, was used in the show Alias. Did you know that?
I did not.
In the pilot episode of Alias, they used that same song, only they used the acoustic version, which is strange because Alias was created as a sort of what-if Felicity was a CIA agent. And who played Felicity? Kerry Russell. I tied it all together. How do you like that? But in this version, they used the version from the Peter Gabriel's debut album, Here Comes the Flood. And the only reason he re-recorded that version, he re-recorded the song is because he was never happy with the version of the first album, but they used the version from the first album. He re-recorded it twice. Great song, and that song has some awesome lyrics in it. That because it's always interesting to me. Well, tell us what happens during the montage, Jeff. All
right. So during the montage, we've got Henry looking at his looking through his telescope at the stars, and the star wheel breaks, and he gets frustrated and he just throws it out. Then you've got, I thought he was totally going to go down the basement when Philip was trying to develop those pictures, and he was going to open the door and be like, Dad, my wheel broke, and then open up the dark room, and then all the pictures were going to go to, be ruined, but that didn't happen. So he throws the star wheel out. You've got Paige calling her friend.
Sneaking out of the
house. You've got the very nice scene with Kerry Russell setting up that letter that Leanne had written, folding it up in such a way and then burning the edges so it looked like a candle. And she even wipes a tear away. She turns her head to the side and she wipes a tear away. That was a very nice. That was a very nice moment. And then Philip. But the last image we're left with is the flashback to
that flashback is included in the montage. She's looking through the window, and that was an interesting thing because she's looking through the window watching Jared, and then we see this flashback, and it's her holding Paige, but you can tell she's holding Paige like annoyed. I've got this baby now. This is part of my mission. This is just another part of the mission. But we know that obviously that's
She
not
was
how
watching.
she feels anymore.
Yeah, she was watching Jared with the family. Jared sitting at the head of the table or sitting at the end of the table, and they're feeding them dinner, with all the rest of the family. So Jared's taken care of. He's with this loving family. He's going to take care of him. And then, like you said, then there's the shot of her with Paige as a baby.
Yes, and so the significance of this song playing to me is, I can't tell you the whole definition of the song, but there are specific lyrics in this song that because it makes me feel they chose this song on purpose, obviously, not just for the music. Because if they were just going for the tone and the music, they could have gone with the re-record. There was actually a version that he recorded in that early 80s with Robert Fripp that was more closer to the one he recorded. But there's certain lyrics in the song. Stranded. Here's one of the lyrics. Stranded starfish have no place to hide, still waiting for the swollen Easter tide. There's no point in direction. We cannot even choose a side. What does that say? That to me says, the producers, I feel like we're saying stranded starfish. That's KGB agents in America. No place to hide. Well, that talks totally about what's going on. We don't know who's chasing them.
Right.
And there's no point in choosing a side. That's one of the lyrics in there. Drink up, dreamers. You're running dry. The whole song. That specific line was what stuck. We say goodbye to flesh and blood. If again the seas are silent, if any are still alive, it'll be those who gave their island to survive. These are specific lyrics in that song. I feel like that song is a perfect, moody, beautiful song to play over that montage. But I feel like in this case, they really did know the song and they chose it for a reason. Because I feel like those lyrics, I may be digging deep, but I don't think so, because that's an obscure song.
Right.
Nobody knows that song.
Right.
So I feel like they did that on purpose. And if you go back and watch it, and I feel like, her burning that letter was maybe the turning point for her, because her burning that letter means we're not going to tell our kids what we are.
Right.
And that was just an incredible ending to the episode. This was a great episode for only being the third one of the season. It
was fantastic. And on the previews for next week, we saw that Grandma's back.
She's back. Claudia comes back, and
love her.
Yeah. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Because it's like what I like about this, they don't know who the enemy is now. They don't know who the enemy is.
Right. So no, it's a great mystery. Good stuff.
All right. I think you have to go soon, don't you?
I do, but you know what? I'm going to run through our random crew members really quick, and then I got to go. So cue our random crew member music.
It's the random crew members. Random crew members.
All right.
Yeah.
So our first random crew member is Brendan K. Russell.
Okay. What does Brendan do?
Brendan is the camera loader.
Nice.
Yeah. It's
a tough job, man.
He's worked on Lights Out. I thought this was interesting. Beware the Gonzo. I meant to look it up. I don't know what it's about, but interesting title. Beware the Gonzo. And then before that, he's got some production assistant creds. He was a production assistant on 30 Rock.
Oh, cool.
Another one who deserved a shout, especially for this episode, I thought, and actually for the entire season so far, actually, Julie Tucker, who is the casting director.
Yes, she does a great job.
She's actually been Emmy nominated for Nurse Jackie 4 times for outstanding casting for a comedy series. She won in 2008 for Damages. She might have won other times as well or been nominated, but some of the other things she's done is White Collar, The Following, and like I said, Nurse Jackie. And then, because we talked about music, I thought I'd mention Nathan Barr, who does the music. He writes his own scores and performs all of the instruments in his compositions. And actually, I thought this was interesting. He's known for his collection of rare and unusual instruments from around the world. He has a Tibetan human bone trumpet, some gourd cellos, and a pig's belly bagpipe. One of his first jobs was he worked with the fantastic Hans Zimmer. And
Hans Zimmer has everyone work with him.
He's love him. So he scored all 6 seasons of True Blood and Hemlock Grove, and actually was 2013 got a double Emmy nomination for outstanding original main title theme music for The Americans and Hemlock Grove.
Awesome, very cool. All right then. Well, I first, before we wrap things up, I need to say that I am an employee of the Cartoon Network and the Turner Broadcasting System, and that the views and opinions expressed here by me are my own, and they are not those of the parent company. Boy, that was poorly paraphrased, but I hope they don't come after me. some other business we have to say. Comrades is produced by Southgate Media Group. We've talked about them before. You can go to their website at southgatemedia.com. Is it southgatemedia.com or
SouthgateMediaGroup.com.
Sorry. And the website is sponsored. We have sponsors, so I need to just give a shout out to some of our sponsors. Audible.com, which I've actually used, where you can get audiobooks. Pretty cool. T-shirtbordello.com, which have some very cool T-shirts and stuff like that, and Tweaked Audio, which is a headphone thing. Which now that I'm giving a shout out, Tweaked, hey, how about some headphones? Just kidding. I'll keep shouting out. Maybe I'll get some really cool headphones than these gargantuan things in my head. So there, please check out Southgate Media. Please check out those other sponsors. Also, if you're listening to this on Popdose, please continue to read Popdose and read the various wonderful writing that goes on this website that makes us one of the best pop culture websites on the web. And hey, you know what? Since I've talked about today, I'm going to do my best to do some more TV writing to really live up to my name of TV editor. I really am, Jeff.
I hope so, Scott.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Stop letting us down.
I'm sorry. The music that we use here on the e-commerce podcast is called Target Practice. It's written by Dave Sampin and Sean Flynn, otherwise known as the band Expiate. For more information on them, please visit expiate.bandcamp.com. And I just want to do one other thing. Jeff and I talked about this earlier in the week. My family is involved with a fundraising event called Great Strides. It's sponsored. It's an annual walk by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. This is a walk to help raise money and awareness for this disease, cystic fibrosis. It's something that is near and dear to my heart because my son lives with this illness. Our walk takes place in the beginning of May. For anybody that's interested in perhaps sponsoring my family, or perhaps forming your own team, or finding out where you can maybe do a walk in your hometown, because there are walks all around the country. This is like the national thing. You can look on the Comrades Facebook page. I put a video there that my daughter assembled, and it's got link information to where you can go to the CF Foundation. I know that that's a lot of stuff to spit out there, but part of my mission in life is to raise awareness for this horrible disease and to help find a cure, and progress is being made. And I know that has nothing to do with Comrades, although you know what? This whole episode of Comrades and this whole season about Comrades has been about family, and as Jeff...
And children.
And children. And Jeff and I are both fathers, and both family is important to us, as it is with Southgate Media Group, because they try and put out family-friendly podcasts, not the ones that have the F word thrown around every 5 minutes. So please, if you have it in your heart, check out the video. Please come to our Comrades Facebook page and like us. You can go to facebook.com/pages/comrade-podcast.
And communicate with us. Talk with us. Leave messages for us. Tell us what we missed, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want us to talk about in the future, stuff like that. And rate us when you download us. Yes, please do. We enjoy doing this. We enjoy doing this very much. Otherwise, I wouldn't go up at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning and Skype with Jeff. I mean, I like Skyping with Jeff, but it's the getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning part. That's the part that's not my day to sleep in. All right, not so much fun. Yeah. All right. On that note, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week. See ya.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.